My name is Derek Barnish. I'm 31 years old. I live in Auburn, New York. I was born and raised in the Syracuse area, and my disease of addiction started when I was about 15 years old. I came from a good family. They weren't well off, but I was provided with what I needed and more. I went to a good high school, Janesville DeWitt High School. I got good grades in high school. I graduated with a good GPA. But when I was 15, I started to experiment with alcohol and marijuana. That shifted into mushrooms and acid and cocaine. And what I realized was that any substance that I could put in my body that allowed me to have a better experience in life, I was hooked. I didn't like feeling normal. I liked what drugs and alcohol could provide for me in an altered state of reality, constantly having a good feeling. So my addiction when it began wasn't to a specific substance or anything. It was just to the idea that I could change the feeling that I had about myself and about life and about problems that I had. And from that day, I was hooked. Throughout high school, my disease progressed. I got into legal trouble. I was arrested. I did some time at Jamesville Penitentiary. I came out on probation. Um, but that quite wasn't an eye opener for me. I was young. I was only about 18 or 19. I continued to drink. I continued to use drugs when I was done with probation. And I thought that a big uplifting life change would solve my problem. So I moved down to Florida for a little while. Unfortunately, my disease followed me down to Florida, and I began to drink heavily and use cocaine a lot. Again, to enhance my perception of life, to feel better, to fit in, to go out and party, to have fun. As I look back in retrospect, it was because I was never okay with who I was, or I never felt good about the person that I was, and if I could kind of change my suit or my skin to fit in with other people, and other people liked me, then I was okay with myself. After my disease got pretty bad down in Florida, I thought again that another life changing experience, like moving back to Syracuse, would help me control my addiction. And that's kind of the insanity of my disease. Is as I look back, I constantly did things over and over, the same things, and thought that I would get a different result. And that is the definition of insanity. I always thought that changing my drug of choice would be different, that this time I could control it, or it wouldn't turn out the same way it did the past 74,000 times, that this time it would be different. And that's what my disease constantly told me, was that I was in control, that I could handle it, um, that if I did something, major upheaving in my life, some big change, that it would be different. And it never was. So I came back to Syracuse. I got a good job at a local hospital. And at that hospital, I was introduced into opiate pain pills. I had heard that opiate pain pills were a great way to feel better, to relieve stress and anxiety, and just enjoy life better. They were offered to me. I took them and I tried them. And from those first couple pain pills, I was off to the races. I loved the experience that it gave me in life. I was taking them every single day at work, to go through work, because it made work seem better. It made hanging out with friends seem better. And I found out that when I drank on those opiate pills, it kind of enhanced my experience a little bit more. So my drinking then accelerated. It got to the point where every dollar, every paycheck that I had to be buying opiate pills with them. And I was putting myself in bad positions to get those pills, going to very bad neighborhoods in Syracuse, doing drug deals out in the open, whatever I needed to do to get my hands on those pills. And if that meant pawning my personal property, stealing property from other people to pawn to get money, stealing gift cards, whatever it may be, I put that towards my drug addiction, both pain pills and alcohol. And it got to the point where those pain pills didn't enhance my experience as much as start to just bring me back to a state of feeling normal. Because when I wasn't taking opiate pain pills or alcohol, I was sick, physically ill. I was going through withdrawals. And I needed those pain pills and I needed that alcohol in order to just function. I needed it to go to work. I needed it to get up in the morning, to take a shower. I needed it to make my appointments. And it was no longer about getting high, having fun, fitting in, or partying, as it was about maintaining, being able to survive out in the world and show people that I wasn't sick, because I hated to be shaking and sweating and vomiting constantly in public. And that's what it was for me. And of course, that got to the point where I was sick at work when I couldn't get pain pills and alcohol. I was calling in and I lost my job. My addiction cost me one of the best jobs that I ever had. It caused me to crash my vehicle. I lost my car. My addiction has cost me many things in my life. It's cost me many relationships, many friends. I lost the relationship that I had with my son and my son's mother, which I'm trying to build back today. There were many friends that didn't want to have anything to do with me because I was, constantly under the influence of something, or, they were worried that when I was around that I was going to be stealing something or taking something so that I could feed my next high. And that was true. I was always looking for what I could take. If I was in somebody's house, it was, what can I get? How can I get money so that I can feed my addiction? Eventually the only people that I had left in my life were my mother and my father. And that's where I was living, in my parents' house. And as my disease continued to progress, it was very clear and apparent to my family that they could no longer trust me, that they had given me so many chances, and you can only push people so far before they've had enough of you. And my parents kicked me out. I had no longer had a place to stay. I didn't have a friend's house that I could go to because they didn't want me around. My parents loved me, but they couldn't enable me anymore. So at that point, I was homeless. I had nowhere to go. I lived on the street. I packed a bag and a sleeping bag and a pillow, and I went out there on the street with no job, no money in my pocket. And eventually, when that physical illness set in, that detox from alcohol and from pain pills set in, I had no choice but to go to the hospital. I went to the hospital and they treated me because that was a place to stay. That was a place that I could sleep indoors and not be out on the street. From the hospital, I came to the decision that, I needed some inpatient treatment. So I went to that inpatient treatment and did the 30 days there, but was afraid to leave. Being an inpatient, I was in a safety bubble. I couldn't drink, I couldn't use, I couldn't get my hands on anything, and it was great. I was afraid to leave. And when it was my time to leave, I had nowhere to go. I still had no place I could live. I still had no job. I had no money. I didn't know what I was going to do. From there, I moved into a halfway house in Auburn. At the halfway house, I was learning to reassimilate into society, how to do my laundry, how to take care of myself. Eventually from there, I moved into a supportive living program, which is where I currently live now. And today, actually on this very day today, I have 9 months clean and sober. And life today is amazing. I no longer have the obsession to drink or to use drugs or to take pain pills to change my experience. That doesn't mean that life today is always great and perfect. I still have problems. I still, life has its own set of shit that comes along with it. But today I'm able to deal with those problems. And a lot of that comes from the involvement that I do in the community here in Cayuga County. Anything that I can do to help somebody who's still suffering, to help people who are trying to get into recovery, that's kind of my primary purpose and part of my program of recovery. I work the 12-step program in the fellowship, and it has taught me so many things. There are people out there who are dying every single day from this opioid crisis, and not just opiates, from alcohol, from all different kinds of drugs, and the decisions that come along with being in addiction. And I've been there. And I don't wish that upon anybody, not even my worst enemy. So anything that I can do to help those people. Today I'm involved in the Drug-Free Community Coalition of Cayuga County. I help to spread education, awareness, and prevention to the youth here in Cayuga County. I work with Nick's Ride for Friends, who works with people who are in recovery to sustain them in recovery. That was a big problem for me, was coming into recovery, was how am I going to live my life without drugs and alcohol anymore? How will I ever enjoy anything? And it's a long process and it's hard. but I put in the work today because I believe that I am worth it. And I am worth it. And today, with my involvement in the community, with being able to help other people, with putting on activities and events for people in recovery and showing them that recovery is possible, that we can have fun in recovery, that we can do this, and that, I'm not alone in this struggle, that there are other people out there who are like me, in trying to break that stigma of an alcoholic or an addict is somebody who lives under a bridge with a needle sticking out of their arm. It's not. An alcoholic or an addict or an opiate addict can be someone who's serving you coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, who's bagging your groceries for you at the supermarket. That stigma, keeps a lot of people in the dark about it. Today I wear my recovery on my sleeve in the hopes that it may reach out, that it may help somebody else. My involvement helps me to stay sober and to stay clean. And today, my worst day, clean and sober, is better than my best day, drunk and high. And that's pretty much my struggle, my story, and what I do today to stay clean and sober and try to help other people in recovery. So if you'd like to talk more, please email me or give me a phone call. My phone number is 561 847 1600. Thank you very much.